reasons that we look for. And today we're going to look at some of those reasons, some of those excuses for procrastination in the lives of Christians. You know, as far as the world is concerned, I'm just going to be honest with you. Yes, the world's going to make excuses. The world's going to find any reason in the world to not listen to the Lord. But as Christians today, we should not be in that boat. We should not be looking for excuses to not work. We should be looking for reasons to work. And so I'm going to look at a few today. I have 4 or 5, maybe 3. I don't know where I'm going to go with this. I know I have several on here. I don't know if I'll cover them all or not. We'll just have to see. But I want to start off over in Exodus chapter 4. Exodus chapter 4 is one of the big examples, early examples of procrastination, or an excuse for procrastination, I should say that. Because Moses, of course, winds up not being able to procrastinate. He tries his best. He fights with God. He says, I can't speak, I can't act, I'm not the person for this, and God takes all his excuses away. But let's look at one of the main ones that Moses uses. Exodus chapter 4, starting at verse 10. The word of the Lord says, But Moses replied to the Lord, Please, Lord, I have never been eloquent, either in the past or recently, or since you have been speaking to your servant, because my mouth and my tongue are sluggish. The Lord said to him, Who placed the mouth on humans? Who makes a person mute or deaf, seeing or blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now go, I will help you speak, and I will teach you what to say. Now Moses believed that he was not personally competent. So that's one of the first things that I want us to look at today is personal incompetency. We try to play it off as we're being humble, or we don't want to, we're self-defecating, or whatever it is you want to call it. We talk about these things and we can't do these things. We want to make excuses and say, well, God did not give me the ability to teach. God did not give me the ability to sing. God did not give me the ability to play an instrument. God did not give me the ability to work with kids or to work with the elderly or whatever it is. Well, guess what? None of us have all the abilities. None of us have the ability to do everything in the church, but we all have the ability to do something. When God saves your soul, when God gives you that eternal life, when God gives you that relationship, He's given you something that you can do. Now, you may not know for sure what that is, and I'm going to be honest with you. Some people don't know exactly what that is, but the reason they don't know is because they haven't been looking. They're more worried about making excuses for why they can't do it, saying they don't have the abilities, than they are about saying, well, Lord, what abilities do I have? And we need to get away from saying we're incompetent and we're unable to do these things, because God is saying, no, you have every ability that I gave you. And when we say we can't do something, we're saying, God, you didn't do what you told me to do. You're basically calling God a liar when you say you can't do something. Because everyone can do something. Judges chapter 6 and verse 12 says, Then the angel of the Lord appeared to him and said, The Lord is with you, valiant warrior. Gideon said to him, Please, my Lord, if the Lord is with us, why has all this happened? And where are all these wonders that our ancestors told us about? They said, Hasn't the Lord brought us out of Egypt? But now the Lord has abandoned us and handed us over to Midian. The Lord turned to him and said, Go in the strength you have and deliver Israel from the grasp of Midian. I am sending you. He said to him, Please, Lord, how can I deliver Israel? Look, my family is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the youngest in my father's family, but I will be with you, the Lord said to him. You will strike Midian down as if it were one man. Now right here, Gideon uses a little bit different tact. He's not saying I'm personally incompetent. He's not saying I cannot do this act, but he's saying I don't hold the social position to do these things. He says, I'm from the smallest family. I'm from someone that no one pays attention to. It's a lack of social position that he is using as his excuse. I'm the youngest in my family. I'm the smallest family of this tribe, of the smallest tribe of this nation. Why would anyone follow me? And too many times today, we want to use that same excuse. Look at my life. No one will listen to me. I'm a recovering drug addict. I'm a recovering alcoholic. I'm a former prostitute. I'm just a really bad husband. I beat my wife. Or, I left my family and went out and married someone else and had a whole other family and just ignored the one that I left. I'm a terrible person. No one would listen to me. That's exactly what Satan wants you to say, and that's exactly what Satan wants you to believe. God can use you regardless of your past. God can use you regardless of what your future may hold. God can use you. That's why He chose you. That's why He allowed you to be His child. And we've got to realize that today. We need to stop looking at our position in society and letting that determine where we are at. You know, I can't go to First Baptist because only the rich people go there. That's what a lot of people think about First Baptist Church, guys. And guess what? A lot of people at First Baptist churches all over the country perpetuate that myth. They don't want to invite people that are of a different social class. They feel uncomfortable if people with their own skin color show up. They feel awkward if kids from the trailer parks down the road get up and come to church and their parents are not with them. I've dealt with this. This is not the First Baptist Church I preached at, guys. And guess what? A lot of the issues were the same on both sides of the country. It happens. And I'm not saying this morning that the people sitting here are like that, but people think we're like that. And why is that? Because we don't go out there and knock those myths down. We don't go out there and prove those people wrong. We'll allow them to continue thinking that. And then we wonder why our churches are not thriving the way we think they should. We've got to get out of this. We've got to get out of giving people an excuse for not coming to church. We've got to show them that we love them, that we want them, and whatever their social position is does not matter. What matters is their relationship with the Lord. Proverbs 22:13, this is one that most Christians will agree with. The slacker says, there's a lion outside. I'll be killed in the public square. You might sit here and say, well, Christians don't talk about lions being outside. No, they don't. But think about the idea of what it's saying right there. Sometimes people say, you know what, yeah, I would like to do that, but it's just too tough. It's a difficult undertaking. I just can't do it. We would love to put on Bible school, but man, it's just so hard. We can't get enough volunteers. We'd love to do a Christmas play. We just can't get the volunteers to do it. We can't get kids to do it. We'd love to have more Sunday school. We just can't get teachers. We'd love to do this. It's just, we can't do that. We can't do that. We can't do that. It's just too difficult. I'm just going to be honest with you today. If Michelle and I looked at the situation every time we went to a church and said, you know, we can't do these things, we'd like to, we have to have 30 volunteers, we've only got 5. If we did that, we would never do anything. You know, sometimes things are not going to be as big as you want them to be. If you have 5 volunteers, do what you can with 5 volunteers. If you have 50, do what you can with 50. But don't allow that to prevent you from doing what God has called you to do because it's not as big or as grand as you think it should be, or it's not as easy as you think it should be. Sharing the gospel, while it is one of the easiest things in the world to do, it's also one of the most difficult things to do. You know, we did that training, 3 Circles training, and several people went through that. You know, and even with training, even with having a guide to help you, it's not easy. It's still not easy to walk up to someone and initiate a gospel conversation, even though sharing the gospel is super easy. Jesus came, He lived, He died, He rose again. It's that simple. Then you got to explain it. But you would be surprised at how difficult that is, and that prevents a lot of people, a lot of Christians from living the Christian life because they want to say, it's just too difficult. Just too hard. So I'll put it off. I'll wait another day. I'll do whatever it is I'm supposed to do other than what God's called me to do. Over in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 1, another excuse. This is the words of Jeremiah, the son of Hilkiah, one of the priests living in Anathoth in the territory of Benjamin. The word of the Lord came to him in the 13th year of the reign of Josiah, son of Amon, king of Judah. It also came throughout the days of Jehoiakim, son of Josiah, king of Judah, until the 5th month of the 11th year of Zedekiah, son of Josiah, king of Judah, when the people of Jerusalem went into exile. The word of the Lord came to me, this is Jeremiah. I chose you before I formed you in the womb. I set you apart before you were born. I appointed you a prophet to the nations. But I protested, O Lord, no. Look, I don't know how to speak since I am only a youth. Then the Lord said to me, do not say I am only a youth, for you will go to everyone I send you to and speak whatever I tell you. Do not be afraid of anyone, for I will be with you to rescue you. This is the Lord's declaration. Now Jeremiah, and we might look at that as a legitimate excuse, but Jeremiah thought he was too weak because he was a child. He said that personal weakness that I'm using, it's a decent excuse, isn't it? I'm just too young. You know, and in the church today, we're kind of like that. We look at people and say, well, you're too young to hold certain offices, certain positions. And I'm not saying we should allow children to preach the message. I'm not saying we should allow children to lead worship. I'm not saying we should allow kids to do these things. But there are a lot of things that kids can do. There are a lot of things that people that are unlearned can do if we would let them have the opportunity to do it. We've got to show these people, instead of giving them the excuse of being too weak personally, whether it's through lack of study, whether it's through lack of physical stature, whatever it may be, stop giving them an excuse and stop using those excuses for yourself. I'm too young, I'm too old, I'm too hot, I'm too cold, I'm too smart, I'm too dumb. We're always looking for reasons to not do things instead of saying, Lord, here I am. Do whatever you can with me. Instead, we're saying, well, let me go study for a little while. Or let me do this for a little while. Let me do something else, and then I will do what it is you're calling me to do. As Christians, that's what we do more than anything. We say, Lord, yes, I see what you want me to do, but allow me to do something else first. I can't accomplish that goal right now. And the main reason we can't accomplish those goals is because deep down, we don't want to. We need to get out of that mindset. We need to get out of the mindset that we're too weak to do things. That's exactly what Satan wants. Matthew chapter 25 and verse 41 is another excuse. It says, then he will also say to those on the left, depart from me, you who were cursed, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me nothing to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me nothing to drink. I was a stranger, and you didn't take me in. I was naked and you didn't clothe me, sick and in prison and you didn't take care of me. Then they too will answer, Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty or a stranger or without clothes or sick or in prison and not help you? Then he will answer them, truly I tell you, whatever you did not do for one of the least of these, you did not do for me. And they will go away into eternal punishment, but the righteous into eternal life. The sad thing about it is the people he's talking to out there, it's people that were following him. He said, guys, you don't see a need. You don't see a problem. You know, and you can see it right here in our community. You can talk to people like, well, no, everybody works. Everybody that wants to work works. Everybody that wants to live in a house lives in a house. You know, a lot of people don't see that there is a homeless issue in Chatham County, not just in Siler City, but in Chatham County. There is an issue with people not having the food that they need. The kids are undernourished. People don't see the issue with people not having what we consider the basic necessities of life: electricity, running water, a phone. You know, we don't see these things because we don't want to see these things. We just say, well, if they really want them, they'd work harder. How many of us have said that or thought that? I'm guilty of it. If they really wanted that, they could just work a little harder. They could take a second job or a third job. You know, they're hiring everywhere. Look, McDonald's is hiring right now. How many people that say that will go get a job at McDonald's if they need one? We've got to stop and realize that there is a need. There's a need not just for spiritual healing, but for physical healing as well. What good is it to walk up to someone that's starving, that's hungry? Maybe when I say starving, of course that's a term that we throw around. But someone that hasn't eaten in a day or so, and we say, well, let me pray for you. And they say, well, can you buy me something to eat? No, I only have $6. I've got to go to McDonald's myself. But let me pray for you. You think they're really listening to that prayer at that point? We've got to find the need. Instead of saying there is no need, let's acknowledge the need and say we just don't see it yet. We just don't see it. Right here in our community, you can drive through Siler City and you can see, I don't know how many Hispanic-speaking churches there are. There's multiple. There may be as many as there are Southern Baptist churches. I don't know. You know, and a lot of people, when you talk to them about reaching the Hispanic community, they'll say, well, there's a lot of churches for the Hispanic population. Well, guess what? Siler City is 62.5% Hispanic, something like that. Do you think that entire population is going to that handful of churches? If that's the case, why do we have as many or more Southern Baptist churches for English-speaking people, but yet we say there's plenty of churches for those people? They still need to be reached by the gospel, guys. Even though we may not speak the same language, we may not have the same culture, we've got to find a way to share the gospel with all of those that are dying and going to hell. We can't pick and choose. There is a need. And of course, over in Luke chapter 14, at verse 18, it says, but without exception, they all began to make excuses. The first one said to him, I have bought a field, and I must go out and see it. I ask you to excuse me. Another said, I have bought 5 yoke of oxen, and I'm going to try them out. I ask you to excuse me. And another said, I just got married, and therefore I'm unable to come. And this is kind of like the one that said, let me go bury my father. But this is a little bit different, because this is not personal issues. This is more about business issues, pressures of business and pressures of life. Let me get all this taken care of. Let me make sure my money issues are taken care of, and then I will work for you, Lord. Let me make sure the bank account is big enough, and then I will work for you, Lord. Let me make sure I've got everything to where I'm comfortable, and then I will work for you, Lord. While we may not say it in those exact words, how many of us are living life exactly like that every day? And the shame of it is, when we hear that, a lot of people get angry. They get aggravated. They say, well, you're just pushing at people. Now, you're trying to push buttons. You're trying to make people angry. No, I'm just pointing out the fact that we put everything before God. Everything. We put off serving God so we can have the life we want. And all those excuses are just that. They're just excuses. And we've got to realize that we need to get past these excuses. Luke chapter 9, verse 61 says, another said, I will follow you, Lord, but first let me go say goodbye to those in my house. But Jesus said to him, no one who puts his hand to the plow and looks back is fit for the kingdom of God. No one that puts his hand to the plow and looks back is fit for the kingdom of God. You know, there's a lot of examples of procrastination in the Bible that I didn't cover today. I could be here all day, but I'm not going to do that to you. You know, the young rich ruler not wanting to sell what he had. Remember that story? He comes up to Jesus and says, well, what do I have to do? And Jesus said, follow the commandments. He's like, I do that. I'm doing all that. I don't know if he's trying to corner Jesus and what's going on really there, but Jesus says, okay, yeah, you do those things. Go sell everything you have and give it to the poor, and then you can come follow me. And he just walked away sad. We never heard another thing about that young man. The rich man and Lazarus. You know, the rich man, it doesn't say he was a bad person. You know, as a matter of fact, he gave the scraps from his table to Lazarus. You know, and people, he allowed Lazarus to sit outside his gate. Lazarus would bum money. But the rich man never listened to Lazarus when he talked about his relationship with God. The rich man never looked for a relationship with God. He was content with what he had. He had made his life what he wanted it. And then, of course, the one that was mentioned earlier, Felix. When Paul would come before him, Paul was sent to preach the gospel. Paul was not trying to beg for mercy. He was not trying to get out of prison. He was preaching the gospel. Felix would get scared. He was like, just go away. Just leave, and when I want to talk to you, I'll call you back. And these three are some of the best ones because they all three had the opportunity. They all three had the chance to listen and to accept a relationship with the Lord. But they never accepted it. And we never hear of these three again. Satan, his old friend, procrastination, won those three souls. How many souls is Satan taking today because Christians procrastinate, put off, and don't do the things that need to be done? Of course, we can be thinking about it in different ways. You know, a lot of people think, well, we need to do this in church, we need to do that in church, and that's fine. You know, yeah, things need to happen in church, but it's not just about church, guys. It's not just about changing the color of the carpet or putting these nice screens in that we have now. It's not just about coming and listening to the preacher. It's not about having youth group and having Sunday school and having choir practice. It's not about staying busy. But it's about getting the gospel out there. It's about us as individuals dedicating our lives to serving God. It's about us being willing to put our wants, our desires, our comforts to the side and say, it's time for me to dedicate myself to you, Lord. How many people went to the grave with big plans for tomorrow? How many? You know, I think back, I'm 47 years old. And before I turned 40, about half of my graduating class in high school had died. Half of them. And it was different stuff. Drug overdoses, one kid got hit by a train. One of my best friends died from cancer. We just graduated. She died less than a year after graduating. All kinds of different things happening. But do you think those 18, 19, 20-year-olds were thinking, I'm going to die today? I'm sure their parents tried to get them to go to church. My mom and dad tried to get me to go to church. I don't worry about that stuff. That's for old people. I'll worry about that later. Thankfully, God gave me another chance. And because God gave me a chance, I want to make sure I give everyone else around me a chance. That's all we can do is offer them the chance. We can't pressure, we can't force, we can't make anyone do anything. But we can give them the opportunity to accept a relationship with Jesus Christ. We cannot put that off another day. So Randy gets ready to play closing song. I want to ask you something. How many of you have someone or had someone in your life that you're thinking, you know what? I always had intentions of talking to that person, or I always had intentions of introducing myself, or I always had intentions of, this friend that just didn't make it. I wanted to talk to them, but I never did. How many of you have someone like that in your life? Maybe it's not you personally, maybe it's someone else, maybe your mom or dad, or your husband or your wife, or maybe they have a story of that person that didn't get that opportunity. Why don't we talk with the Lord and say, Lord, help me to not procrastinate. Help me to not put off today what I can do today. Help me to rededicate my life. Help me to realize that all these things that were mentioned are just excuses. Yes, it's going to be difficult sometimes. Yes, I may be in a different social class than the person I'm talking to. Yes, I may not have all the abilities. I may not have all the education or all the understanding. I may not even really see a need for it. But I know it's there. Just because someone is sitting in church does not mean they don't need to hear the gospel. Just because someone, their grocery cart might be more full than yours does not mean they don't have a need in their life. Just because they speak a different language or look a different way does not mean that you cannot reach them. We've got to realize that God does not want us to procrastinate. God does not want us to put things off because we don't know if we have tomorrow to do those things. I'm not the type of preacher, I don't like to sit and try to scare people and say, you're going to die tonight. The end is coming. The Lord's going to split the eastern sky wide open today, and you're going to die without that opportunity. That blood's going to be on your hands. I'm not one of those preachers. But I want you to know this. It could happen that quickly. You know what? Even if the end doesn't come, there are literally millions of people dying all over the world every day. Either they had the opportunity to share the gospel and didn't, or they needed to hear the gospel and didn't. Do you want the thought of any of those people dying and going to hell to be with you? So as Christians today, as believers today, I'm asking you to say, Lord, help me to not procrastinate. Help me to do what's needed to help this church flourish. Help me to do what's needed to see this community revived in a way that it's never been revived. Help me to be the instigator of change. Help me to be one that stands up for you. I'm not going to wait on somebody else. I'm not going to wait on the preacher to tell me exactly what to do. But I'm going to start seeking out what it is you have called me to do. I may not know what skills I need yet. I may not even know what the job is yet, but I'm going to begin seeking it out. I'm going to look for the things you would have me to do, Lord, and I'm going to do them. I may not do them to the best of anyone else's ability, but I'm going to do them to the best of my ability. And you know what? There may be people that are better than you at all the things that God calls you to do. But it's not about who's the best at it. It's about who's the most willing to do it. And that's what I want to see this morning in our church, is a room full of people willing to do whatever it is God calls them to do. So as this song plays, I'm going to ask you to just pray and say, Lord, help me to be willing to do whatever it is you would have me to do. Just let us pray. Dear Lord, I thank you today for each and every one that's come out. I just thank you for the opportunity to be here, where I pray as we go out these walls, that we realize that instead of making excuses, we need to just step up and say, Lord, help me to do what it is you call me to do. Help me to have the courage, the strength, and the power to do whatever it is you want to do. And if we do that, Lord, you will bless us. You will help us. You will guide us in the path that you want us to go. And as long as we have the strength to follow, we'll be right where we need to be. I love you, Lord, and I thank you so much. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.